Meet Joe. Joe's a good, intelligent family man, but unfortunately for him and his family, he had debts which were not getting any easier to pay. This is Sarah. Sarah had also built up quite a bit of debt. Her debts were very different to Joe's. Individually, the different debts she had were quite small, but when added together, they mounted up to quite a lot. Joe had always worked for a living and worked hard to meet the needs of his young and growing family. But over time, his debts crept up to the point where he couldn't immediately afford his monthly payments. Sarah's debts mostly came from her credit cards, but she also owed money to a catalogue company, had a small loan and had a few arrears on her utility bills as well. Sarah never intended to have all this debt, but somehow it just happened. Joe had hoped that things would get better on their own, but unfortunately overtime didn't materialise and bonuses were a lot smaller than he'd hoped for. He even considered a second job, but just couldn't find the time. Both Sarah and Joe knew they needed to do something to make their debts more manageable. By clicking on the free advice button, Joe and Sarah let us know they wanted some advice. They both immediately received an email showing them options which may be available for their different situations. And Joe also entered his phone number, and this allowed Scott, one of our advisors, to call and explain each option available to Joe and how they'll affect Joe's ability to get more credit, the monthly cost of the different debt options, and which would work best for Joe and his family. This took less than 15 minutes. It was free and there was no obligation. After hearing the different debt options, Joe said, "Okay, show me what you can do." And Scott immediately got to work. Now, Scott's a calm guy and he knows exactly what to do and how to help people with their debts. Working with the rest of his team, Scott was very quickly able to get the interest frozen on Joe's debts and had Joe's monthly repayments reduced to an amount that Joe could actually afford. But that wasn't all that Scott was able to do for Joe. Scott knew that Joe could become debt-free more quickly if we were able to get part of his debt written off. So, with Joe's approval, Scott went ahead and started working towards a debt write-off solution. Scott got all of Joe's creditors together, let them know Joe's circumstances and the maximum payment that Joe could actually afford. In Joe's case, an offer of 45% was put on the table and the creditors voted. Even though not all of the creditors agreed to the solution, enough of them voted to approve the plan, and this meant that all the creditors had to abide by the terms of the agreement. Scott let Joe know the outcome of the vote straight away. Of course, the final decision to proceed was made by Joe, who was delighted to find that such a large amount of debt could be written off in the terms of the agreement. And now Joe knows exactly how many payments he has left, and he's looking forward to being debt-free.